Nick Richards was traded since the last time we spoke. We talked about Nick Richards being the most likely guy to be moved, and we said it was because he has value, and it's a credit to him. And it happened literally within days of us recording. Look, I know the Hornets and Heartbreak guys kind of broke down the full trade last week. I also broke down the trade for culture.com as well. I think I gave it a B+ for the trade overall. What were your thoughts when you saw the news come through?
First, I was glad Nurkic wasn't coming back. I was glad about that.
I bet you were after a conversation last week.
Because when the trade when I saw the Shams tweet, I saw that Nick Richards was the leading, like the name he led with first. That feels good, by the way. Like having a Hornet be the main guy in the thing is nice. But I assume when I saw him, I thought, okay, Nurkic can't be in the trade because I think Nurkic would have led the headline. But I'm so happy for Nick Richards. Like I think he is going to thrive out there and has an opportunity to really raise up his game playing with a higher end roster because he's such a dirty work guy. Like he's not going to elevate a roster, but when things are already elevated, he's going to raise the ceiling raise the floor of what's going on, allowing the other guys to be themselves. So him in that environment is awesome. So I'm super happy for him, especially a guy who was basically like they kept drafting over him. Like since they drafted him, right? Even on draft night, like they had Vernon Carey selected above him. They took Kai Jones. They took Mark Williams. They kept trying to replace him.
Yep.
And
he just came through.
He kept persevering and powering through. And he was on, like, I know it was like only 5 or something games this season, but he was on pace to do something I think really special before he got hurt. And like really proved that, like, hey, listen, I know people think I'm something, but I promise you I'm something more. And I think he's getting a chance to prove what he's fully capable of in Phoenix. So on that end, I'm super happy for Nick. And for Charlotte, I think it's solid business. Like the Okogie piece coming back is kind of like whatever, right? I don't view it really as a basketball move. It's really a push from a cap point of view because it's non-guaranteed next season. So just like Nick Richards was $5 million non-guaranteed next year, same thing with Okogie. Like that's a push. And then you're also bringing in more second-round picks when they're going to have to give up 2 second-round picks because of the lottery protected pick in this year's draft. So they owe that to San Antonio, right?
Yep.
So the Hornets have to pay out 2 second-rounders. So anytime you can get more back, it reduces that burden, right? Because of that lottery protected pick in this year's draft. So I think it makes sense all around. And the Hornets aren't a good enough team to have a guy like Nick Richards on it. Like there's no need for him to be there. He's useful. He's a really good player, but it just doesn't make sense for what the Hornets.
Especially when his starting center picks up 4 fouls in the second quarter against Daniel Gafford. He's useful. Hey, look, Musa Diabate battled well, I thought.
Yeah, true.
Look, yeah, I wrote in my kind of like trade preview piece that Nick Richards was between 2 to 4 second-round picks. And they got 3 for him. I know they gave one up, but the one they gave up is going to be in the 50s in this year's draft. And they already have the Philly pick and the New Orleans pick earlier in the draft. Like, they just don't need that pick. It's burning a hole in their pocket. So, and the picks that they got, this is the thing that I think is probably most under-discussed. I think there's some really, really high-value second-round picks. 2031 picks from Denver and Phoenix. They're both teams that are old, capped out, asset poor, who don't project to like be good in 6 years. Like if they are good in 6 years, they've threaded a almost impossible needle, or they've hit gold with something. I think the 2026 Denver pick, they don't have a pick currently in 2026, like you say, because of that aforementioned trade. So they don't have a second round pick yet before this trade. Now they do. Again, like that Denver pick will probably be 45 to 50. So again, it's not great value, but to like at least have a pick in that draft is useful. Like you want to have second round picks in every draft when you are a rebuilding team, because you never know how things are going to break. So yeah, overall, I think it was pretty solid value. I gave it a B+. I echo everything you said about Nick Richards. I've always said that I think he's probably one of the best backup centers in the league and could start for a team. I think probably the feeling around the NBA was that he was just a guy, just a backup guy. And and didn't really have that. So I'm hoping that he does find success because that will help prove me right as well. But interesting that they made this move early, very early. I think Jeff Peterson even said, like, because they played Phoenix in those back-to-back games, that like fast-tracked discussions a little bit. So maybe had some meetings around there. So it's interesting why they decided to pull that trigger now. Maybe the Suns put something else on the table. If you do the trade now, we'll give you X. But that Koji piece, you're right. It's a team option, I think it is, next year, or non-guaranteed. So he might stick around. He might not. It might depend if Cody Martin sticks around and if he's still here by the end of the trade deadline, because then maybe you do keep a Koji because he gives you like a defensive wing that could fill the Martin role. It gives you a bunch of more flexibility, which Peterson says every time he speaks to the media, he wants flexibility, and that's what this trade has given you. So, yeah, I think overall I was pretty happy with the move and thought it was fair value.
You think Nick is like, fuck, I gotta play with Mason Plumlee again, or no?
But this is the Hornets, the Charlotte to Phoenix conveyor belt of Mason Plumlee, Nick Richards, Frank Kaminsky. We're missing someone else.
Biz was in there too, isn't it?
Bismack Biyombo, absolutely, yeah. Like there's, I can't wait till Mark Williams is on the Suns in 2031. It's gonna be fun to see.
Who gets traded next?
Who gets traded next? Yeah, that's a great question.
If anybody.
Cody Martin. I think he's the one that I think is easiest to move because of his contract size and status. Vasiljevic, I think, will be one that goes, but maybe like right at the end of the deadline where it's just like a tax dodging move by someone.
Right.
So it could be just like someone sitting there waiting for it. But yeah, Cody Martin and Vasiljevic.
I agree. I think Cody is the best player that could be traded.
Yeah.
But, so I think he'd go. I think he'd go.
And there was buzz again, I think, from Mark Stein's Substack that the Suns pushed to have Cody Martin involved in that trade as well.
Okay.
But I mean, Charlotte weren't going to do that unless they threw that 2031 first in, and I don't think Phoenix are putting a first on the table for Richards and Cody Martin. So
that'd be crazy.
I can understand why that didn't come to fruition.
Okay.
But yeah, farewell, Nick Richards.
Yes.
Great second round success story, which there haven't been many of in Charlotte over the years. I think he joins Cody Martin as the only two. They're the only two second round picks ever to sign a second deal after their rookie contract in Charlotte Hornets history. So it's pretty good company to have, Nick.